Now, there's lots of ways to do this, right? You can, obviously you can write this, you can create this environment from scratch. You can write it from scratch. Or you can bring in pieces from different places. And in that context, you really open up a bag of worms if you take that type of a stance. Because you end up doing a lot of maintenance work. And as I said, where you want to put all your energies in making this a success is in nurturing the environment. So if you're having a lot of technical issues, they basically contribute to the disineffectiveness of the environment. So another alternative is to really consider a tool that's already created and already has the skill, already has the functionality that you need. Lotus Connections, IBM's Lotus Connections is a very good example and one of the industry's leading example of this type of environment. And as you can see by this chart, it basically has all of the functionality that you're used to seeing in things like Facebook and LinkedIn and all of that. And now it can be tailored to basically address your specific business needs. Another thing I also wanted to mention in the context of utilizing tools that are already out there so that you can simplify your life. You can actually install the product in-house inside your own business and manage it from there. I'm sure many of you have heard of software as a service, so you can actually get this type of environment and renting it on a month-to-month basis. So that's a very useful tool for a lot of reasons, obviously, right? You can do pilots on this to sort of determine if it's really an effective tool for you in terms of this. And then once you decide that, hey, this is something that you can really take advantage of on a large scale, then you can take the time and expenditure to bring it in-house and maintain it. Or you may have transient communities where you basically don't want, their communities are going to be around for a long time. They're going to be around to generate a new product. They're going to be around to solve particular problems. In which case, again, you might want to just rent the time out in terms of getting this type of environment. Okay, so let's talk real quick. We're going to talk about some examples of the use of this technology in specific businesses. We're going to be using examples of IBM customers. In some cases, I can give you the names. In some cases, I can't. But obviously, we protect people's confidentiality. But we have to make sure that the customer agrees with everything that we're sharing with you, of course. So in this first example, we have a financial services company, and what they did was they had a problem about, in terms of traders getting compliance expertise and getting compliance calls. If they were trying to make it some kind of a trade or some kind of a sale or a purchase, and there was some question as to whether they were meeting all of the SEC's compliance rules. As you can imagine, that's gotten very, very complex and is only getting worse by the day. So in that context, they were taking about 2 to 3 weeks to actually get a compliance issue through their system, which was basically manual, which basically just involved calling the compliance person, and then that person would draw upon their expertise, and then they would draw upon legal expertise, and that internal counsel might draw upon an external counsel. So what they did was they created a community, a compliance community, that basically when the trader had a specific compliance issue, they would enter that into their compliance community, and the compliance person that was assigned to work that with them would work it in this community. And in this community now there was the internal counsels that they needed, and there was access to the external counsels that might be needed for specific issues, as well as the knowledge of all the other issues that have been resolved through the system and all the other expertise that have been resolved in the past. And this was a very successful tool for them. And a couple of things that they did that were really interesting that probably really contributed to the success was they created a couple of perks to encourage people to participate in this. So for the compliance people who had expertise, they created this expertise engine, and they provided rewards for them contributing to that engine. Financial rewards, I'm sure, given that it's that type of company. But at any rate, then in addition to that, for the external counsel, they created sort of this counsel selection engine, and external counsel, because they wanted to do business with this company, would be very motivated to participate in this engine and put in the inputs, the data about their expertise and their experience, and thereby made it readily available to the internal counsel when they were looking for something very specific. So this was a very successful example.
Margarita, I have a couple questions on that, and that's why I was raising my hand. So obviously, if we are engaging, the internal team for compliance type of questions, there's got to be some sort of alerts and notifications, when people post a question, that the experts will get them right away so that they have like a timely, answer to the questions, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
So a couple things there. So first off, so that's going to be tailored depending on the community itself, right? So in the context of this internal community, probably these guys just got instant messages that popped up on their work screen that told them that there was something out there for them to work on. And or if it was an external thing, then they probably sent email. But this is something that can be done and tailored based on the needs of a specific community.
Okay, and all these instant messagings are now persistent, right? In the system, so that we can go back and take a look.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Great.
And then in addition to that, and as this expertise is being built, really the number of calls that went out to compliance experts was reduced.
Oh, okay. And how people look for this kind of expertise is through keywords or tags, right?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Great. Again, it would depend. You want to set it up so that your community, that's a really good example of how something that you're going to set up with your community, and you're going to monitor carefully to make sure it's meeting the needs of the community. So they might have started this with an actual, say, some kind of law number, some SEC code or something, and determined that it was better to use keywords.
I think rewards is very key for getting people to participate in these communities, because everybody's so busy.
Exactly, and they definitely attribute that to the success of this particular.
Right. Why would I have time to, jump into another community?
Right. But what you don't realize is that people are saving time, because instead of answering all the phone calls and all the emails, all of that will be reduced.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Thank you.
All right. So the next example is Sageti, and this is a technical services organization, a very large one, that's been very successful over the last few years. They used connections. Initially, of course, they had a database where they had all of the skills and experience of their various consultants. And instead of this database, they created a community of consultants where the consultants were able to enter the things that they were learning, give input, provide opinions on blogs, and really exchange with each other in addition to the information about their particular skills. And this has facilitated them in staffing up projects, and also getting through projects and getting through technical issues or any other issues that might have arisen as a result of a given project. This is a staple of Sageti's. They absolutely live and breathe by this particular community. Okay, our next example, and how are we doing on time?
I think we're doing good. So another question I have for you, Margarita, is in the example of Sageti, there's a number of people participating in community is kind of crucial, right? Because if you have a small number of consultants, it doesn't make sense. But when you reach a certain critical mass,
well, there's a couple things about that. Yes, definitely if you've got 5 consultants and you know them all in your head, and there's no need for this in terms of finding the consultants. But don't forget that so this idea of having the profiles is one thing, but the back and forth between the different consultants is the other thing that is of great value. So yeah, you may not need them for your profiles because you know everybody's skill. But by the way, you may not know that one of your consultants is off setting up something for a nonprofit that they work for that they would eventually add on their own, because they're encouraged to maintain their own profiles that gives them an expertise that you may or may not have been aware of. In addition to that, it allows the idea is to create this ability for them to exchange ideas with each other. Again, if they're all in the same room and they're all, they can easily exchange with each other, it probably doesn't make sense.
Right.
But I don't know a consultant in my field that is sitting in the same room 8 hours a day with the same people all the time. believe this is a very mobile type of.
Yeah, it's surprising on how much we don't communicate with each other.
Right, right.
You know?
And this sort of facilitates what we used to do, I guess.
Okay, all right, okay.
All right, so this last one is Clinton's, and this is really sort of like a remax of the UK. And they basically had acquired a bunch of different consultants throughout the world. They're global, and all their professionals were all over Europe and all over the Middle East. And basically, there was absolutely very little communication between the different groups. And they would find that people were generating, sort of creating the wheel every time, creating the same wheel over and over again. So obviously, just any kind of connection was going to improve this circumstance. But given the scope of the geography and the cultures, they elected to do this because this provided them an ability to communicate in any language that was needed, because this tool is available in multiple languages, and they were able to, again, encourage. The idea was to get them connected and sort of distribute information to them, but also to get them to start talking amongst themselves. And you can imagine that would be really hard to do if you're living in different countries. Although Europeans are a little bit better at it than we are. But at any rate, this very, very much facilitated that. It became a very key element of their success. Okay. So that's some examples that you might think about. We're going to go through a demo at the end in terms of, I'm going to show you a business that, sort of a creative startup business that utilized this environment to start up a business right from scratch. But so we're going to see this. We're going to see connections more. We're going to see some more of a virtual community. But one thing I just wanted you to understand, that one of the most important things about this type of community is that you be able to sort of plug it into whatever environment it goes into, and that it's able to communicate with whatever is in that environment already. So if you buy something that is sort of standalone and doesn't integrate well with other things, you're only going to solve half the problem, right? You may or may not solve half the problem. But that's one of the absolute advantages of Lotus Connections, and that is that it will integrate with a variety of existing applications and environments. So there's an ability to go to an iPhone. If you want people to use iPhone, most of your users are going to tend to be on the iPhone. There's an ability to do that. It already comes with the product. You don't have to spend any energy to do that. You can integrate, and probably there might already be widgets and things available that will integrate to other applications like SAP or Oracle. So and you can integrate into your instant messaging system that you may have today, and then obviously into your email system that you may have today. So this is absolutely critical to this success, especially in large organizations.
And Margarita, this is Sarah again. You and Teresa talked about this a little bit when you were talking about rewards, but it's a lot of information coming in, as you were showing on that last slide, and I'm just curious about how the profiles really work and whether employees are required to complete them when they start. How do you kind of jumpstart that process and support that community?
So the answer to that, Sarah, is it's going to, you basically would have, whoever implements this is going to have control of that, of what they want, how much they want the user to do, and how much they want to do themselves, right? And so it's something that's tailorable. Obviously, in the context of a community, you definitely want to give them the ability to enter things about themselves and update things about themselves, but there may be some things that you don't want. And so that's completely tailorable based on the implementation. So I'm going to show you that a little bit more when we look at the demo. Okay?
All right,
Thanks.
that sounds good.
Okay, great.
I think we should jump right into the demo.
Okay, so we're at that time. Just real last, these are just some additional examples of some other companies and IBM customers that have actually utilized Connection. So you can see this is not a product that's brand new. So let me jump over to my demo here real quick.